Have you ever felt like God wasn't listening to your prayers? Like your cries for help were echoing into empty space? Today, we're exploring one of the most relatable stories in the Bible, a prophet's desperate search for answers and the extraordinary way God responded. It's around 600 BC in the ancient kingdom of Judah. The nation is crumbling under corruption, violence, and injustice. In the midst of this chaos stands Habakkuk, a prophet whose name means to embrace or to wrestle. And wrestle he does not with men, but with God himself. Habakkuk isn't your typical prophet. Instead of delivering God's messages to the people, he's firing questions at heaven. He looks around at his nation and sees the wealthy oppressing the poor, courts perverted by bribes, and violence everywhere. His heart breaks, and he boldly confronts the Almighty. "How long, Lord, must I call for help, but you do not listen?" Habakkuk cries out in chapter 1, verse 2, "Or cry out to you about violence, but you do not save. Why do you make me look at injustice? Why do you tolerate wrongdoing?" This isn't polite, religious language. This is raw, honest frustration from a man who genuinely cares about justice. Habakkuk embodies what many believers experience: the tension between faith and reality, between God's promises and present circumstances. God responds, but his answer shocks Habakkuk. The Lord reveals he's raising up the Babylonians, a ruthless, violent nation, to judge Judah's sins. Imagine Habakkuk's confusion. God's solution to violence is more violence. His remedy for injustice involves an even more unjust nation. This divine response creates an even bigger problem in Habakkuk's mind. In chapter 1, verse 13, he questions further. "Your eyes are too pure to look on evil, you cannot tolerate wrongdoing. Why then do you tolerate the treacherous? Why are you silent while the wicked swallow up those more righteous than themselves?" It's here that our story reaches its pivotal moment. Faced with God's puzzling response, Habakkuk makes a remarkable decision. Rather than walking away in frustration or accepting a superficial answer, he chooses to wait. In chapter 2, verse 1, Habakkuk declares, "I will stand at my watch and station myself on the ramparts. I will look to see what he will say to me, and what answer I am to give to this complaint." Picture this scene. Habakkuk climbs to his watchtower, likely a high place overlooking the countryside. Ancient watchmen would stand guard for hours, scanning the horizon for approaching armies or messengers. They required patience, alertness, and unwavering focus. Habakkuk transforms his spiritual struggle into a watchman's duty. He positions himself not just physically, but spiritually to receive God's communication. This isn't passive waiting, it's active, expectant, faithful positioning. The Hebrew word for watch here suggests a military post. Habakkuk treats his prayer life like a soldier on duty. He's determined to stay at his post until God provides clarity. This demonstrates remarkable spiritual maturity, the ability to wait in faith when answers don't come immediately. God honors Habakkuk's patient persistence. The Lord responds in verse 2. "Write down the revelation and make it plain on tablets so that a herald may run with it." God not only answers but commands that the response be recorded for others. The revelation God provides becomes one of Scripture's most powerful statements about faith. The righteous person will live by his faith, Habakkuk 2:4. This verse later becomes foundational to the New Testament, quoted by Paul in Romans and Galatians to explain justification by faith. God reveals that Babylon's judgment is temporary. Though they'll serve his purposes, they too will face consequences for their pride and violence. Justice will ultimately prevail, even if the timeline differs from human expectations. Habakkuk's watchtower experience teaches us profound lessons about prayer and faith. First, it's acceptable to bring our honest questions and frustrations to God. Habakkuk's boldness didn't offend the Lord, it engaged him. Second, waiting for God's answers requires intentional positioning. Like Habakkuk on his watchtower, we must place ourselves where we can hear from heaven. This might mean setting aside distractions, creating quiet spaces, or maintaining spiritual disciplines even when we don't feel like it. Third, God's responses often come in unexpected ways and timing. Habakkuk learned that divine solutions frequently transcend human understanding. What appears problematic from our limited perspective serves greater purposes in God's eternal plan. Finally, the revelation Habakkuk received wasn't just for him. God commanded it be written down for others. Our patient faith during difficult seasons often produces testimonies that encourage future generations. Habakkuk's story reminds us that faith isn't the absence of questions. It's the commitment to seek answers from the right source and wait expectantly for God's response. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Then hit the notification bell so you won't miss the new weekly videos.